practically how, innovation had been diffused, into the market, or market has accepted it. And we're going to go down the practical route as well. So the first question is, those innovative products that had actually come on stream, how has been the, if I should put it that way, what do you think had been the fundamental reasons, that had made those innovations, accepted in the market? What had been the pillars? What had been the pillars that had actually supported the entry of those innovations? Anyone? What has been the what do you call it? The reasons why those innovations actually happen, or what market acceptance?
Good morning, Professor Mensah.
Good morning, Canel. Thank you.
I think one of the main reasons that come to my mind is those innovations were solving a very big people need.
Mm.
So they identify that there was a need in the market, and when those innovations came, they were addressing those needs, which make a rapid adoption of that innovation.
Okay, great point. So it means that there was an effective market research or market intelligence that gave the businesses that insight that, look, when done, the market is ready for it. So with that effective sensing mechanisms to understand that the market is ready, it may not be. So we need to get a market readiness. And how do you detect market readiness is about the continuous gathering of data, of sensing the need of the market. And once that evidence is overwhelming, and I'm sure as marketers, some of you who are marketers, we say that a segment is actually worth pursuing when that segment has what do you call the measurability, and then of course you can determine the substantial character of that segment. So can the segment give you your break even? All right. Of course, how much you actually investing or spending, your cost factors. Now, would the revenue be more than the cost so that you could actually break even, or you could actually realize the return? Once that substantial character of that segment, of that market is established, then yes, you can go in. Now, you would not be able to determine this if you're not constantly gathering data to understand the readiness of the market. Fantastic point. I think that also Shekna also talked about market needs, of course. So the same point that we're actually talking about. To understand the needs of the market is to zoom in, is to research, is to gather intelligence, and be very sure that the market is ready for this particular instance. Now, let me give a case study. I'm sure it's a story that a lot of us have heard before, and it's about Sony Walkman. How many of us remember the Sony Walkman? Minding that, knowing that perhaps some of you are millennials, I'm not sure. Some of you too are not. Sony Walkman, yes, Cornell, okay. So the story about Sony Walkman goes this way, that the CEO of Sony actually travels from Japan to the US regularly on management meetings, board meetings, etc. Because of course they have, Yeah, the Sony Walkman. They have stakeholders in the US, shareholders in the US. Apparently, whenever he's making that long journey, it's so boring for him that he sits in the plane first class, dream he's gone. So obviously, Sony used to make these big, sound systems. And the story goes that he once got back to Japan and asked his, team, his developers that, look, can you compress this particular big, sound systems into that small, very small thing that I can play while I'm on my journey because the journey is boring. They were baffled by that. And they decided, they said, why not? We can try. Yeah, the cassette one or the CD one. Yeah, so the cassette one started before the CD one came. So again, that actually tells us about the trajectory of market readiness, you see, from cassette to CD. So when they decided to make that, they made it that small that the man can put it, and then they came up with the idea of, obviously putting the headset as opposed to playing, because I'm not sure, because these are two components, the player itself and the headset. I'm not sure about how the headset came, but the story says that the man needed something small to listen to. So on his journey back to the US, he plugs it in and he listens to it. And people will just be watching him and say, what the hell is this guy doing? I mean, and then he'll be listening to that. He gets to the US, he come back and say, wow, that was amazing, because it made him, and so he went for another meeting and he told the guys that, look, I think the market will want this. All right. So, and everybody was like, come on, what are you saying? Who would want to put in, a music and then be dancing? People would think you're crazy. Some people thought that it's even security risk. I mean, putting this in your ear and walking, what if car knocks you down? That kind of things. So at the meeting, media, I think press engagement, when he talked about the new kind of product that they are coming at, the press in the US absolutely dismissed it and said, this is crazy idea. We don't think that anybody would actually, buy into this idea. He said, okay, well, they went ahead to develop it. Now, when they developed that, when they had to go to market to launch it, he decided that they would use university students in the shopping malls. They will plug in this crazy stuff, and then they will be on a skateboard, or they will be, and then asking people to try it out. Overnight, it caught fire. The entire Japanese market were buzzing about this crazy music instrument that you put in your head and then you're dancing all around. Once it caught fire in Japan, it was all over. That is how this small music thing actually came into the market. Now, from this scenario, and I'm sure Shakni has said, favorable environment, culture, politics, economics, social is key for market adoption. Absolutely. So now, with this scenario that I have actually painted with the case study of Sony Walkman, now, what do we see? And we're talking about a cassette here. What do we see as the factors that has actually contributed into the entry of that innovation? Don't forget, there was already sound system that people listened to, and then came the Walkman. Why do we think that it was a success? Despite the fact that the story didn't say the man or Sony actually commissioned the research, because the story didn't say that. So, but if we say that we need to understand market readiness, and market readiness means that we need to collect data, we need to actually glean data, do research, so that we understand that there is, a need for it. Why is, in this case, not research done, yet the Sony Walkman went on to be a commercial success? Why? Anyone, please?
Yeah. I mean, I see many reasons.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you said, the Japanese culture,
Mm-hmm.
was a strong culture of audio, and they love design. If you check, if, for example, I love Japanese style, for example, I have Japanese shoe, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and they have been very into design. When you look
Yeah.
at the way they dress, they are a lot into culture and design. So that was very smart to attack Japan first, and we saw the widespread in Japan. And I think also it's about
Mm-hmm.
uh, uh, timing.
Mm-hmm.
I think the timing was right. you
Absolutely.
know
Mm-hmm.
uh, at that time there was a growing demand for like portable music solution,
Mm-hmm.
and that was an innovation that allowed people to carry their music with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the timing of that innovation was just spot on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I don't know, but I think also that they invested a lot. I don't know, but I think marketing also will have made a big impact,
Mm-hmm.
because if they choose Japan instead of the US, I think if we dig a little bit, we will see that there was some marketing, communication that went for the university
Mm-hmm.
for those young people to start using it. And I remember that it's expensive, it was affordable as well. So yeah, I think
Absolutely.
those are the ideas that came to my mind.
Absolutely. You're spot on, Cornell. I mean, clearly, and then of course, I think Amadou has also talked about Nokia phone. Yeah, Tekna, come in, please.
Yes, I don't want to go uh, more far than Corneille, thanks to Corneille.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, many behavior uh, uh, should change in the people
Mm-hmm.
where the product is addressed.
Mm-hmm.
You have to change many things in the market, the final client, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, we have to make sure that people change the way to think, change the way to behave, and
Mm-hmm.
try to take new habit.
Mm-hmm. New habits.
That
Yeah,
is that is the key.
absolutely.
That is the
Absolutely.
case.
Yeah.
When you see in Senegal, I give the example that's close to the alimentary industry.
Mm-hmm.
Brioche Dorée developed a huge network in Senegal,
Mm-hmm.
and that is they gain the market. They win the market in
Mm-hmm.
Senegal because people, the market was ready to accept brioche dorée. They would look like French people, and they like uh, uh, the food coming from France. Okay,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and yes, and that is the reason why we have many uh, uh, box brioche dorée box in Senegal.
absolutely. Okay,
Yes, and
now great
that
point. So,
wait,
so we realize that the points that have been made, could really explain, a certain characteristics of innovation that could be, quickly adopted. Firstly, the fundamental interest in music is high, and as Cornell just put it, Fundamentally, people want music. Now, in the big, music boxes, it means that you can enjoy your music whilst at a place, at a station, in your house or at your workplace, etc. As you're on the move, then of course, that particular enjoyment is actually cut short. All right. Anta says, I think in the case of Sony Walkman in Japan, the product was also suited to their individualistic lifestyles, very convenient. Absolutely. All right. So again, these were environmental factors which Anta had succinctly actually put together, actually explains why a certain innovation will be a success. So there's a fundamental interest in music. There is a certain, a lifestyle, which Anta just pointed out, individualistic lifestyle. People, would want to perhaps consume music by themselves, whilst they're on the move, for example. Now, we also Cornell talked about design, the appeal of the design, all right? Because the initial music boxes are big. Now, if you think design, which these days we talk about design thinking, you realize that almost everything is going to nano, right? Nano materials. Can we really reduce these big boxes into something small? And mobile phone even speaks to that truism, all right? When people were able to reduce these huge, things into the smaller packages, they found it fascinating. So design also played a key role in people's acceptance, of that innovation. But I think crucially, we have to look at some of the fundamental things. As well. Cornell again says limited competition as well. At the time of its launch, there was limited competition. Absolutely fabulous in the portable music player market. The Walkman essentially created a new product category, giving Sony a first mover advantage. Absolutely. And then, of course, there was a complementary product, which is the cassette, all right, because without a cassette, the Sony wouldn't work. So it means that fundamentally, these factors that we're talking about must be present. The lifestyle of the people, all right? Are people ready to adapt different lifestyle? Of course, the market was ripe for lifestyle change because of the individualistic, kind of lifestyle people had. Two, people already loved music. They were music lovers. And so it was not difficult to tell them that the thing that you love, which is only confined to your house, because the big music boxes are confined in the house, why don't you carry the same thing that you love on your way out whilst you're going? So fundamentally, the environment was right. Of course, competition was limited, so the portable music could actually make an entry. But the point also I was making is that if you look at what we call the LMT, low, medium technologies, are not things that are difficult for people to, learn and learn to consume, which again brings us to the theory of DUI, which is the doing, the using interaction, all right? Any technology, any innovation that is actually from the LMT perspective, the adoption or the diffusion of that technology is quicker because it does not take much of people in terms of their involvement, in terms of cost factors, as Cornell talked about cost as well, because it's LMT, low, medium technology. So the cost input or the involvement into it is not that high. And so people, even if it fails to perform, people can, comfortably do away with, all right? But if it is a very, high, technology, the adoption processes is quite thoughtful. People will really want to spend some time to investigate it, to do a lot of things before they adopt. So when innovation is on the LMT perspective, adoption rate or diffusion rate is very high. Of course, because it's a DUI, which is a doing, using, interactive, innovation, again, it is, easy to adopt. Unlike the STIs, where is the science technology, innovations that actually takes a lot more energy, a lot more time, a lot more, consideration, just like the driverless car. just like drones. These things, their diffusion and adoption is not as rapid as the LMT design. So we always want to look at what kind of innovation are we bringing out to the market, and does that border on an STI or a DUI, and what is the likely success rate? And remember, if innovation is also on the STI, then of course the regulatory mechanism is also high, because there are quite a lot of regulatory issues. It doesn't take much for a Sony Walkman to hit the market. Certainly you can't say the same for a drone, because a drone requires regulatory changes. Whatever regulatory systems, the aviation regulatory systems, a driverless car requires quite a lot of transportation, policies, etc. So you have to look at the policy environment, the regulatory environment, and how that impact on that particular innovation, to understand that the diffusion will be faster or will be slower, depending on what kind of innovation you are bringing on board. Again, we'll talk about the market readiness. Are there complementary products? Does that require a completely changing lifestyle, or it sits on existing lifestyle? In this technology, in this innovation, it sits on existing lifestyle. People consume music, and once they consume music, they would love to take it away, with them. Yeah, IATA for air regulations, absolutely. All right. So in our consideration, when we are on the management table and discussing a certain innovation and actually looking at its possibility of market entry, its diffusion, there are quite a lot of consideration we must ask ourselves. Is this innovation using interactive innovation, or is it purely scientific technological innovation? All right. Is this innovation an LMT? Does that border on low, medium, technology, or it is a higher, level technology? Now, once some of these considerations are done at the management level, we can be sure of its, faster or slower, technological diffusion. And of course, we talked about marketing, the use of students. Are you using the right segment to adore the product? All right. And so we must look at some of these things, and especially our gut feeling. Sometimes we require so much data, or we are so much data oriented, that sometimes your gut feeling tells you there's a need for it. And we shy away from that, because we think, oh, at management level, they would say that, nah, you can't use your personal idiosyncrasies to determine a market for a product. But we are part of the market, aren't we? Now, when you read the George Day, he talks about market driving and market driven. He says that we cannot always rely on the market to tell us, a product that they need, because at some point in time, having worked in the industry for so long, we must have a gut feeling. And sometimes our gut feeling can tell us that there's a need for this market. Of course, you can go ahead to test it, whether there's a substantial need for it. But because we are also social beings, we interact with the community. Sometimes we must be able to have a gut feeling to say that, no, I think there is a need for this particular innovation. So these are some of the things that we must consider, all right? So when we are looking at the innovation diffusion, we want to look at the industry type, some of the factors that actually, sit on whether, or actually, explains whether a certain diffusion or a market adoption would happen. We want to look at the industry type. There are some industries that development, can take a long time, but adoption can take a very long time. Now, I remember the software that we developed, myself and my team, which is the customer feedback especially. Now, the QMS system was definitely in need. Companies need queue management system. But the feedback system and the kind of design that we did, it was very controversial. So although it took us just about barely 6 months to design the software forecast, now going to market, we realized that a lot of people were not comfortable that their colleagues could be, could be seen or could be identified easily with that software. What it does is that when consumer interact with, let's say, a banking agent, teller, they go back to the system and you will see that the system is a digital terminal, a terminal that's sitting there with a computer screen on it. Now, when you go onto the terminal, you see the faces of all the staff who are serving, i.e., the tellers of the bank. All right, you see all the tellers there and their faces on there and their names. Now, you, the customer, would punch which teller actually served you, and then you rate the system. Once you rate the system, automatically it goes onto the dashboard for the manager. The manager can tell that the customer has rated this staff 10% out of 100 or 80% out of 100. Immediately, the manager can call the staff if the marking or the rating is very bad, can call the teller and ask what transpired between you and that customer. So it's designed for immediate quick action. And then again, the manager can quickly call the customer if the rating is very bad to apologize that I've seen that you gave my staff 10 out of 100. Could you tell me what really transpired? Because this is absolutely low. And then the customer can tell the manager the issue that transpired, and then the manager can prefer, apology, other remedies, etc. Now, fantastic device that we thought that it would uproot, it would actually solve the root cause issues, because in Africa, because we're not able to identify who is actually doing the wrong things, we do things in the collective. We cannot solve the problems by identifying staff and their weaknesses, but this software does. One thing we realized was that most of these managers who were responsible for service experience and customer satisfaction were uncomfortable knowing that their colleagues could be identified easily and could be suspended or could be punished or could be recommended for training. So in our analysis, this is fantastic. But to a lot of them, that was no, because you're getting somebody's sister or brother or wife sacked. I said, no, but that's not the intention. We're not wanting somebody to be sacked. We want to identify root causes so that people can be put on training. And they can be, it's just like a big brother, CCTV watching, so that you will be doing the right thing. So guess what? It took us almost 6 years to get to the market, just because people's attitude were not prepared to give away people, to say that somebody is the weak link in the team. So it took us almost 6 years to get ABSA to buy it. So currently ABSA is using it. Other banks are now coming on board. Now people are adjusting to that particular concept of root cause, let's identify who is making the mistake and then help. But when we started, it was so, I couldn't believe that people could say, no, we don't think this is right. So you have to look at the industry characteristics and see whether that industry character has a certain inherent behavior that would allow the adoption to take place or not. And some of it is, regulatory frameworks, people's behavior, especially people's behavior. Shekna, come in, please.
Just to reinforce this point, the people behavior is a main key to facilitate market adoption. Mm-hmm. An example, yes, we experience is many years before we are already established a fantastic technical product, but many people, many partners were fair to this product. They made great resistance to adopt this product. But few years later, they because of their change behavior, they come again and take and accept more and more the same product,
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
and we lose many years. You see, that's the reason why when we engage innovation, you have first to take to the culture environment to people.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously,
To work on it, because they could be they could reduce or augment the cost, the cost of the process, the product, and influence negatively if we don't take care very well the market adoption of the product.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Attitudes to product or people's behaviors and attitudes actually change. And you could see that in the past, you know, some product had actually gone out of the market and come again. For example, if you look at, you know, this car, the Italian job car, what's the name? I forgot, that small car that used to be, they used it for that movie, Italian Job. You realize that that car went out of the market. At some point, people started buying big cars. And so all these small cars like the VW, you know, the VW, that small one, the round one, all of them went out of the market. Eventually, they came back. They make an entry because at some point in time, the oil prices, you know, the environmental factors like the cost of oil, cost of fuel, had actually changed people's, you know, consumption taste. So you realize that in UK, for example, almost all the small cars did a U-turn. They started coming back into the system because cost of fuel was so high that people are no longer prepared to drive those gasoline cars, those big cars. The small cars started making an entry. Typical example also is mobile phones. If you look at it, from the beginning, we had big mobile phones. We went into a very tiny ones along the line, the Fiat 500. Yes, I think the Fiat was part. And then the other one, that is a German one. Now I think it's made by BMW. That they call it, they use it for a movie called the Italian Job. You know, and then the other, you know, the Fiat, the Punto, and all those small cars started coming in. Right. If you look at the Mini Cooper, fantastic, Mini Cooper. You know, so the Mini Cooper went out of market and then later made an entry again, of course, with some few design changes. But the key was that people now want to cut down on fuel, on cost of maintaining cars. All right, so the small cars made back entry. If you look at mobile phones, we used to have them bigger. We went into a period, yeah, women love that car, yeah. We went into a period where we started using very small phones, you know, Nokia and Samsung started making these small phones, flip. Now look at what we have gone. We've gone back to the big phones again. I mean, if you look at the iPhones, you know, these are iPhone, what do you call, 14, etc. These are big phones, all right? But in the past, we had big phones, we went into smaller ones, and then we come back to big phones again. So you realize that the consumer behavior is not static, it's dynamic, and dynamic with the times, with the environment. And so as the environment changes, the acceptability of some, you know, innovations actually change. So you have to continuously monitor the market and see people's behavior and the wider macroeconomic issues like cost of living, for example, you know, could actually determine, you know, some of these things. Now, we have a other practical example that we can dwell on. I think Shiloh is here, obviously, Cornell. those of you who have actually been in the fintech space, and who also is in the fintech, I think, one of you, and Anta, I think also. Now, why do you think digital money, especially in terms of the transfer, all right, money transfer, unlike obviously when we had a Western Union and others, we didn't used to send them on the internet or digital apps, etc. We had to go to them and then do it. Why do you think the diffusion? How long do you think it took you for people to accept, this digital money, Momo, Wave, etc.? And why do you think are the underpinnings for that acceptance? Any of you can actually answer me. Why do you think digital money, especially the money transfer market, the mobile money, wallet, etc., how long did it take people to accept it? And what are some of the underpinnings for its acceptance? I hope I'm clear on that one, please. We're looking at diffusion of innovations.
Kilo first, or Anta? Yeah, Anta.
Yeah, Anta, come in, please.
Yeah. As a consumer, because I used to work also at the fintech sector, but not as like Orange or Wave, but it was aggregator. So I think it get very quick for people to accept it. For many reasons. I will say first, a lot of people they don't have if I compare, for example, with the bank, they don't have bank account, but everybody has a mobile phone. Absolutely. Everybody at I will say, even in the very very like the villages, people they have access to internet, even if the quality is not as good as in suburb. But I think it get very quick. If I see like my case or other people's case, it take very quick for people to accept it because it was convenient. It was like the access was easy, and also for example the network also played a key role. Because you just go downstairs and you find the shop next to you having like Orange Money or Wave, and you can make the transaction. So very convenient for the consumer. So the acceptance was very quick and it was very welcome, I would say.
Excellent. Yeah. Fantastic point. Connor, come in and then I will make a fantastic point. And thank you for that.
I think her points are very valid. And what I wanted to add to that is, I think we had the chance that the mobile penetration was relatively high. A good network with Orange, with Free, have helped a lot. And, many Senegalese have access to smartphone or feature phone, so it make it very convenient for them to use like digital money, like you are saying, or mobile money. And also, one of the other challenges we saw on the market was the lack of access to traditional banking. So you see that even now, right now, if I want to go to withdraw money from an ATM, the closest, I'm at West Foire, the closest ATM is either like around, like going to the airport or at the end of the VDN if I pass Orange building. So it's very far even to go to a bank or to go to an ATM to withdraw money. But with mobile money, I have so many shops at 1 minute, 2 minute walk from my home. So that access to quick withdrawal or sending points, you know, was a very, was a solution. And the third one that comes to my mind is remittances. We have a lot of Senegalese and African outside of Africa, and they want quick and easy solution to send money to their people back home and for their people to withdraw money quickly. Yeah, so those are some of the reason why.
Great point.
Yeah.
Good point. So approximately how long do we think that it took the diffusion of this mobile money, digital money in the market from the consumption to go to market? Approximately. I think someone just said about 8 years. Yeah. Yeah. Ochek says less than 8 years. Okay, that's great. Yeah. So we could see the fundamental, support systems or variables that actually informed, the diffusion of that particular innovation. And do we see that? How would we classify? Let me ask the question: how would we classify that particular innovation of digital money? Is it STI? Is it science, technology, innovation, or is it DUI? That is doing, using, and interactive. How would you consider it? Not any typical question, but any ideas? Sorry. Okay, so sorry, say DUI. Absolutely. I think so too, because I remember when the first time that MTN did their adverts, they had to show evidences, and usually in DUI, it's about showing evidences that indeed, the money works, digital money works, and then of course, it doesn't take one to be literate to actually use that. And because the knowledge input is that low, and of course, the usability is not too technical, it's easy for people to adopt, and the diffusion is very high. Great point, guys. Thank you so much for that. So yeah, so we need to look at, okay, so Bankareni says, in Morocco, we didn't accept this solution yet. All right. Bankareni, can you give us an idea? Yeah, can you give us why? Is it that the original or the traditional banking systems is everywhere, and as a result, and I can agree with you, because even in UK, it's not the kind of services in UK, because obviously the traditional services, which is the banking services, is almost very well diffused. So, Bankareni, can you give us your version so that we know the situation in Morocco? Thank you. Bankareni, are you there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so let's hear it.
We didn't, in Morocco, we didn't accept this solution. As you say, system banking is more useful, and it's easy to transfer money with the banking system. But I think we have already we have good internet network. We have all think is good, but people didn't accept this solution. People prefer to use money to transfer money with the mobile phone. It's a culture. Our culture is like that. Maybe Moroccan who live abroad, they send money to Morocco by mobile solution, but in Morocco, in market Morocco, we use already cash. They prefer cash.
Okay. All right. Yes, they love to touch the money, as Cornel just said. Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah, Yannick, come in, please. That's a very good perspective, that one. Yeah. Yannick.
So I want to raise also the issue looking at for bank services with cash money. By instance, actually we have a lot of innovation people are talking of. But when implementing this innovation, we can have also some of the big issues. For example, for money, imagine you have your money on your card and there's no network. Or sometimes you want to transfer the money from phone to phone by instance, and it's not possible because maybe the person, they have some technical issue by instance. So sometimes money also, cash money is very important. I agree with you that in some areas like in pharmaceutical, for supply chain, by instance, we are using a lot of innovation for ELMIs, for distribution system, things like. But for money, I like money, cash money.
You want to touch it? Yeah, you want to touch it physical. Yeah, that's good. Great. Yeah, excellent. Now that's a good insight. As I said, you know, the British public didn't actually accept that solution either. I remember that Barclays introduced what they call ping in UK. Now it didn't take off. I think they have withdrawn that service. Why? Because the traditional banking system is very well distributed and very well diffused, penetrated. So people ordinarily would have a lot more faith in the traditional banking in wiring money in country than using mobile devices. So in that perspective, you realize that when it comes to digital money, mobile money, Africa, most part of Africa, especially maybe I think Western Africa, is quite developed than most other places because those other places have traditional banking very well diffused. I'm not sure about South Africa. Has anyone got an idea? I know that M-Pesa is fantastic in Kenya, and so Kenya is one of the leading, mobile money environment. But I'm not quite sure about South Africa, whether it's also, very well diffused or they also heavily rely on traditional banking. Has anybody got an idea? Now, Babakar says, I guess the margin is very low as many solutions die or pivot after some years. Yes. Osek says, in banking, the issue is that the time to recover wrong debit. Yeah. For Visa, we have 45 days to return fund. Yes. Yannick says, I was in Ethiopia, even in small restaurant, there was ATM points. Oh, wow. So it means that Ethiopia is also well diffused with traditional banking. And so it will be very difficult for mobile money to actually. And then Osek says, with wallets, Wave and Orange Money, you have just 2 seconds. Yeah, in terms of retrieval of wrong debits. Yeah, absolutely. So these are some of the reasons that would actually underpin the use of these services and not. Great point. Thank you. So, sorry. So
just,
go on.
Just to answer your question about South Africa, I think one of the main challenge in South Africa is going to be similar to Morocco. Mobile money has not yet achieved the same level of success because South Africa has a very well-established traditional banking sector. So a lot of mobile money company like MTN have faced a lot of challenges in trying to penetrate that market. I know that people are still trying, but yeah, I know that Morocco and South Africa are very similar.
Great point. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, so it means that fundamentally where there is extensive access to traditional services, it is difficult for such innovations to actually take place unless it's a dramatic, shift. And that brings to point. This morning I was reading about, yesterday we were discussing fiber for internet, and I read this morning that Elon Musk has actually launched the Starlink in many countries, and Kenyan president went there, I think yesterday, to talk about Starlink coming to Kenya. And very soon people are actually predicting that Starlink, which is satellite internet, might become the backbone for internet in Africa because of the unavailability, the same thing that we are talking about, unavailability of fiber infrastructure in most remote African countries. Most of these African leaders are now looking for alternative, and Starlink seems to be the alternative because it's using satellite technology as opposed to the fiber optics. But of course, in terms of its benefits, the fiber optics are actually far more cheaper, far more faster, and then of course far more easy to access than the Starlink. But of course, the issue of accessibility in remote places, because Starlink is a wireless, it's a satellite. Clearly, it's a global service, and so some African countries like Kenya has taken the lead, are trying to look for Starlink as an alternative to satisfy the remote countries. So it means that it is most likely that if Starlink can enhance on its usability and its cost, etc., perhaps it could actually become the competition to fiber. Who knows? We may end up seeing fiber in the museum, maybe. All right, Shekna, come in, please.
Maybe useful. I want to add it this point. In fact, the concept of market adoption is very close to the on my own view to the perspective individual people has on your own self, and more broadly, country or region sees themselves between the other country.
Mm-hmm.
When you follow, for example, the tendency, mobile money is new, it's very smart,
Mm-hmm.
etc. But when you analyze the consequence that will take in the country and in the population, the appreciation to the different individuals coming from North Africa,
Mm-hmm.
for example, Morocco, or South Africa, or another part, East Africa, that's not the same.
Mm-hmm.
They don't see this new tendency as the same way, and that could affect their home behavior and their home regulation in their country, and that determine many things.
Mm-hmm.
And as we can hear from you and from the other colleagues, that impact the penetration of the product in the market.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
and facilitate on and or make less facilitate the adoption of the market.
Yeah.
And that is one point I wanted to say. Another aspect is that is more deeper. When you see the most developed or the great piece, the great country in the world, USA, Russian, Chinese, they try to define their sovereignty and try to orient the innovation in certain way. Mm-hmm. They try to influence people to take each choice and not another.
Mm-hmm.
For example, this kind of country, on contrary in Africa, they develop fundamental research and they invest a lot in this way, and they prepare the both their country and other country to change way to behave and prepare the adoption of the product will come maybe 10, 20 or 50 years later.
Excellent. Now that's great, because it borders on the points that is made here: market vision and innovative new product and consumption patterns. You know, the market vision, if you look at Europe's and America, not America, but Europe had made it fundamental that by the year, I think 2030, if I'm right, they must face off, is it 2030 or 20, I've forgotten the year, but I think between 2035 to 2050, they must face off, fossil fuel. And 2030, right? Okay. So they must face off fossil fuel. And so they are increasingly pushing for green energy. And that's why the hybrid, the EVs, the electric vehicles, etc., is being driven extensively. America doesn't have that particular vision. America is still very much fundamentally, on what we call fossil fuel, although they still also push the agenda of EV. I mean, even America hasn't even signed up to the protocol, the Kyoto Protocol for greener energy. And so the point that you made, Shakna, is very, very, right, that it depends on the outlook of the country, the market vision. In Ghana, for example, there's a cashless society agenda that is being driven, that the country must go cashless. So the pushing for digital money, etc. Of course, recently the central bank actually is looking into the ECD, using crypto, etc. Nigeria had gone the same way, but of course, other markets don't see it that way. And so the market vision also contributes to the adoption or the diffusion processes. If the market finds it or see themselves as wanting to move into that money, that particular area, they would facilitate in terms of policies, in terms of regulations, in terms of support to industries, etc. Wilfred says in this area of mobile money, banks also positioned inside through some apps to take part for managing huge flows transactions. Absolutely. Right, Chilo, I think that, Cornell made a point that perhaps it also depends on the penetration. And then she says that Sonatel has invested so much in Senegal. Obviously, we don't have the same situation in Ghana, Togo, Benin. What do you think in terms of the point I made that, Kenya, for example, is quoting Starlink? Perhaps the future will be Starlink. What is your point in terms of Sonatel's penetration in rural Senegal and the kind of things, investment that is being made?
Hello. Sorry. Can you come again for the question, please?
Yeah. So we're looking at the success of innovation diffusions, and we're saying that sometimes the backbone actually precipitates, the adoption process faster. And I was giving an example of currently Kenya is trying to lure Starlink because they've seen that Starlink can help rural Kenya where they don't have infrastructure of fiber. But Cornell was making a point that Senegal, for example, it doesn't think that way would be the case for Senegal because of the heavy investment made by Senegal. So most likely they would be on the fiber.
Yeah, you are asking what is the next plan for some innovations or what we have done in order to have now the fiber.
I think I can help Chilo here. Like, I had the chance to visit, like, by the grace of God, like around 25 countries around Africa. And something I noticed is Senegal is like one of the lucky country that have the chance where Sonatel invested a lot in the cable network. So in most countries in Africa, you don't have a cable network where you have the phone at home, you know, where, for example, it helped earlier with the adoption of ADSL, the internet at home. You know, most other countries like Ghana, Benin, Togo, they had to rely on the 3G network, you know, to be able to have internet at home. You see, but in Senegal, for example, we had the telephony line almost almost
The homes.
like every house in Senegal have the telephony coming to the home. They have the line, Sonatel line coming to the home. So that really helped with the adoption of the internet in the homes, you know, and that's why I was saying that Starlink is going to succeed in those countries. For example, if Starlink come to Senegal, they are going to have a lot of challenges because we already have access like fiber. We already have fiber coming to the home in Senegal. So having fiber optic coming to your home is a lot of investment. But Senegal started very early with that. And in a lot of other countries in Africa, fiber is not coming to the home. And that is what is going to make Starlink succeed in those countries where fiber is not coming to the home.
Good point, yeah.
And also, okay, I get the point. Thank you, Corne. And also, there is one also big thing is the pollution of Dakar, because we have from Dakar here international cable from Dakar and connected to the world.
Oh, okay.
And this is the ACE. They are based near Wakam, near the sea. And if you see also from Medina, Sonatel, there is a cable from there to the world. That's why we have all our CTI, like Center Transit International. So we have a big bandwidth, and also it's connecting directly Senegal with this geographic position directly to the world. So it means that the other country behind, like I can say Mali, Burkina, if they want to have access to this cable through the ocean, they have to see with Sonatel or other country which have contact with the sea. And this cable is a big thing. It's very, very important because it's like I don't want to say a gateway, but a big gate, yeah. A big gate to the world, to the big bandwidth, to good service quality. And as said by Corne, we have also existing network. Even it was RDSL, we have connected almost all the main region of Senegal by the Cuivre, and after we just follow this line with the fiber optic. Even that the investment of fiber optic also is very important. Yeah,
that's great. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so that means that whenever there's an innovation, it also depends on the existing infrastructure, how deep that existing infrastructure is, and whether it's serving far more better purposes, like you said, Shiloh. If you look at the Senatel's investment, obviously fiber optics is much more powerful in terms of its connectivity, in terms of its cost. than Starlink would be, unless, of course, in future, Starlink will become far more cheaper and far more faster. Otherwise, then of course, there's no point in far more succeeding, far as what we call Starlink succeeding in Senegal, but of course, in other places where there's a lack of access. A great point. So when you're actually looking at your definition of innovation, you want to look at these factors that we have highlighted. How superior are your alternative, over these? And then, of course, what is the market vision, for that particular market? And that would actually translate into the policy frameworks, the regulatory frameworks, of course, the support that the country actually gives, which yesterday we talked about state intervention for some of this innovation to actually happen. And then, of course, we talked about the consumption pattern. Now, whenever there is innovation, some of these three critical dimensions that would actually support a success of innovation or changing in a technology intensive product. We say that three things must be considered. One, the technological capability, which of course, we are actually discussing, Starlink or fiber optics, all right? Now, we know that fiber optics currently is far more superior to Starlink, for example, as we said. But of course, what is the product capability as well? So beyond the technological capability, that is the technology underpinning the product, here the product is the digital money, or Wave or Orange Money, or any of the banking or the traditional banking services that we're talking about, its capabilities versus the technological capability. So we got to know that in Morocco, for example, the traditional banking services capabilities are high because it has penetrated every bit of Morocco society. So from the rural areas to the urban areas, from what Bankere actually explained, the capability of that particular service is high, all right? And then, of course, the underpinning technology, which is, obviously, they will be, having banking always also thrives on internet, capabilities, all right? And then if you look at the digital money, again, the technological capability sitting on, fiber optics, but the the product capability, which is the digital money, perhaps they don't see it as more capable like the traditional banking because of perhaps risk issues and, of course, consumer behavior in the interaction with the product. As I said, people want to touch the money. So when you want to look at the diffusion of a certain innovation, you want to look at the consumer patterns of consumers. You want to look at product capability, and you want to look at the technological capability. In the case of Morocco, the pattern of consumption means that people want to hold physical money, as we've been told, all right? Whereas elsewhere, there is a certain, crave for, digital money because there isn't enough access, all right? So you have to actually compare these three, underpinnings, these three fundamental issues, which is product capability, technological capability, and then, of course, consumption patterns. If you do those analyses, then you have enough, grounds to actually, understand that, that innovation would really take place. When you draw an imaginary X and Y axis, all right, you realize that on the X axis, in terms of technological capability, all right, and then, pattern, the consumer or pattern of consumer consumption and product capability, it is almost 70% if you draw an imaginary X and Y axis. So on the X axis and then on the Y axis, all right, you realize that almost 70%, on the X axis for technological capability, that is using the disk, as you can see there, the disk there. If you draw the imaginary line, you realize that almost 70%, of technological capability. So the assumption is, if you measure the technological capability for that particular service or that particular product, and it's about 70%, the product's own capabilities about that amount or that percentage, and then the pattern of consumption is about that, right? Then it means that there's a high success, for that particular innovation to take off. Of course, the bottom line here is, which is the existing product, no change. So if you do not have that level of capabilities, then of course there's not going to be any change in the people's attitudes to consuming the traditional, product or the traditional technology. So you always want to gauge whether the environment is right by looking at the level of, capability readiness for these, technology or these innovation, by looking at the product capability, technological capability, and of course, patterns of consumption. All right. But we have also talked about other factors, not necessarily, patterns of consumption or product capability or technological, but we've also talked about complementarity, of existing product. How existing product complements the new product and the new technology would also feed into its readiness. We've talked about, issues about the environment, the micro environment, of course, socio-cultural attitudes, etc. So there are quite a lot of things that you want to measure to be able to determine the readiness of that, diffusion, that innovation taking place in terms of diffusion. All right. Now, so this S-curve tells us about the adoption rate. I mean, this is a popular diffusion model. We always say that when products are, launched, 2.5% of the market as the innovators, in the early adopters, 16%, 50% towards early majority, late majority, and then of course the laggards. Now, this framework helps us to also be able to, work out our finances, our numbers. At what point would we really break even? And so if you look at it, you realize that at point 50, the curve, all right, so it moves. So let's take your cost items, to be 100%. Now between, the what do you call the x-axis, from the x-axis where you have the 2.5 onto the timeline, all right? If you take your cost items to be here, you realize that the in between would be about 50.5 or thereabout. So it means that you could actually break even at that particular point, when you have gotten about 50.5% of the market. I mean, it will give you an idea of, your numbers, your what do you call, cost items, and the revenues will give you at what point would you actually break even, when the product is actually launched or your innovation is actually launched. Any questions or contribution, please? We'll take a break, and then we'll come back. It's 12:30 at your end, right? And it's 11:30. Do we please take about 15 minutes break and come back? Okay. Sure. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. So we'll take a breakfast, 15 minutes, and then we'll come back, please. All right. Thank you so much, guys. See you soon. Okay, welcome, guys. Thank you. Okay. All right. So, any questions at this stage before I continue? Now, I'm going to send the assignment. I will attach it to the. Let me just have it. I'm going to load the assignment on in the chat. I hope you can download them, but I'll circulate them also later. Okay. So I've put the assignment in the chat. There's a paper, what is success innovation? All right, can you all see the document that I've loaded in the chat, please? Do you have it?
Yes,
okay.
sir.
Okay, great. Okay. All right, good. So please, that's the assignment. It has up to a date on the 24th September. Yeah, so you probably want to do that in the course of the week. If for any reason you think that you need extension, let me know. But yeah, so you can also put it on your platform so that those who couldn't retrieve it, they can have it. I would also send it to Sheila if you need any assistance. You can ask Sheila. All right, thank you. All right, okay, so let's go ahead. We're here. So any questions or contribution where we got to, and then we can leave. So obviously, we talked about the diffusion curve, which I'm sure most of us are aware of it, which helps us to know, the kind of the market response. So when you actually launch an innovation, no matter how optimistic you are, you have to be guided by the innovation theory, the diffusion theory. We say that yes, you may be so excited, you might have collected all the data, everything seems positive that once you launch it, it's going to go viral, etc. You have to temper your expectation because there are so many reasons why it wouldn't turn out the way you expected, and so you have to be mindful. Let's have a practical insight, please. Those of you who have launched, innovative products, can you tell us what your expectations were and what was the realities when you launched it? I told you when we built our software, we were all happy. We thought that, and I teach service marketing, and in my class, you have all the bankers in my class, all the hoteliers. I teach tourism marketing as well. So you have all the hoteliers in my class. There's always a talk about customer service is not good in this country. And so I was so optimistic that this software was going to be like boom, because it's going to solve our, customer services issues in country. And I can tell you, I was so, I don't know how to put it. I was so surprised the response of the market. Now it looks like we are bending the curve because I've had quite a lot of responses from companies. In fact, there are 2 banks who are waiting for me to come to Ghana so that we'll start negotiations. We have already negotiated with Fidelity Bank, in fact, the last 2 weeks, and they want us to come and do proof of concept. So it's not taking shape, but the expectation that I had that immediately we launch it, it was going to go viral. It never happened. And that's why the division curve, the percentages there is very important to manage our expectations. Can someone give us an insight about their own launch innovation and the expectation and how the market responded? Please. Anyone with some insights so that we can quickly move on. Any insights?
We have,
yeah,
4 years ago, we were trying to launch a product called Taxi.
Called what?
So Taxi is having the QR code appearing in the taxis in Senegal. So that user can just scan the QR code of the taximan and pay the taxi very easily in Senegal. So 4 years ago, we knew that, you know, there are so many taxis in Senegal and people are always arguing about change, you know, because sometimes you have a big note of 10,000 CFA, which is around, like, let's say $20, and you need to pay for a $2 ride, and the taximan need to give you like $18 back, and most of the time they don't have that change to give you, you know. So in Senegal, people are always like arguing in the taxi with change, you know, and sometimes even like the taximan will not have small change to give you, and he's going to go with your money, you know, or vice versa. So we knew that that was a problem. We tried launching that product 4 years ago, but it flopped. You know, it flopped big. And we learned from our lesson. You know, we knew that the market had that issue, but the market was not ready, you know, to accept that solution. Why? Because Wave was not yet well known by all the taximan and all the users. So in the pilot taxis where we were trying the solution, like a user, a customer who enter in that taxi, the taximan will have his QR code hanging there, but the user will not have the Wave application to scan and to pay, you know. So Wave wasn't yet well known in the country. So we put that project on pause and waited 4 years ago, and waited 4 years after. So recently, like we launched it like 1 year ago, and is a massive success in Senegal. In almost all the taxi in Senegal, you are going to see the QR code of Wave, and people are paying their taxi using the Wave application. Maybe some of my comrades in the call have paid their taxi using the that solution. Wow. But it was just not the right timing to launch it.
Excellent.
Even though we know that it was a problem in Senegal.
Excellent. Wow, that's a very insightful case study. Who else want to add? Fantastic, insight there, Cornell. Thank you. Who else want to add their successes or their failures? Good example. Yeah, Babacar says good example. Thank you. Who else want to add, please? Have your hands been bent with the expectation that this is going to go viral, and then it nosedives? Anyone else, please? Anyone else with a case study? Okay. So clearly, Cornell's case study tells us that the base technology, which was Wave, and that speaks to the first point here. What are the potential applications of a technology as a product? So you could see that when we talk about product, that is a certain, need being fulfilled by a certain, activity, business activity. So Wave here is actually serving as a technology not only for money transfer, which the money transfer, i.e. remittance, is one, as in remittance, as in the strictest sense, is one product, but also paying for a taxi fare is another product, isn't it? It is also technically a remittance because you are remitting money from you and to a taxi driver, but the base technology had to be consumed first, which is the Wave application had to be, downloaded by these two, isn't it? They have to be consumed by these two parties, i.e. the passenger and the driver, so that they can interface these two. Now, I am sure that 4 years back, the driver was going to say, you're going to give my money to somebody I don't know, or how do I get my money? And that conundrum, not being able to understand the technology and how he can actually potentially see his money, would send a dilemma in their minds in accepting to become part of the ecosystem players in there, all right? Because without the taxi driver being part of the ecosystem player, they would not, be able to, appreciate how the whole transaction works. And without them, the transaction can't work. All right. So even if the consumer has the Wave app, the fact that the taxi driver as a critical ecosystem player is not on there cannot work. All right. So they needed to build that brand trust through perhaps the other product, all right, like the remittances, because if you're looking at the someone, a Senegalese who is in diaspora, who is abroad, remitting, say this taxi driver in Ghana, in Senegal, the taxi driver now will come to appreciate that, oh, this Wave technology actually works through that money transfer process. Once they come to appreciate it, it is easy for them to now consume it in their own workplace, as in internally, to be accepted as a mode of payment from a passenger. So sometimes you could realize that potentially the timing, as Cornell actually said, is not there. The brand trust is not there, all right? And you need to build these reputations before the other product, could actually, work. So we see technology as a product, for example, in this particular example, but let's look at Uber, for example. Now, Uber is no longer for, what do you call, passengers, like ride hailing, but it's also for distribution, all right, of food. So now Uber does a courier services, all right? People now, buy, a restaurant, they order food and it's being sent by Uber, for example. So sometimes we could see potentials in technology as product in many, many ways. We developed our app, our software as a product for, customer feedback. Currently, for the financial sector, currently, we've extended it to so many sectors, including education, including health, including hospitality. And now we're even using it potentially for what we call polling, as a polling app. We're thinking about it, all right? So we have to look at the potentials of the application, the technology, in so many other areas that you could actually extend to, right? Anyway, and just like we said, now the Momo or the mobile fintechs are now looking at possibility of going into, what do we call banking, and then of course into insurance. It had already been there. Shekna, come in, please.
Yes, maybe sharing experience in innovation in the field of regulation. Very, very recently, Senegal government lead very important innovation in public procurement regulation by encouraging the company who offer services to public administration to take account to both in social terms, environmental terms, and ecologic terms, in order to force the durable development or sustainable development in Senegal. And that is very, very new in Africa. And we are influence all the regulation in EMBA and above the EMBA region. And this kind of regulation was not simple. We prepare it within at least 5 years. At least 5 years. Yes, 5 to 10. No, around 2020 for 2014. We start working on it, and we learn a lot. We learn a lot over the border by using the high standard in the world, like the standard of OECD, using MAPS, the methodology of evaluation of public procurement system. And this kind of way to change, we start by engaging all the stakeholders around the public procurement. I would say private sector, civil society, contractor authorities, and also the high public authority, the presidency, and all the government to demonstrate that this kind of change is the right way to help our country to get emergence and to use the public procurement as a tool to help to help the vulnerable people to access to the market, and in this way become more rich. And that is the one experience, and this experience now is duplicated in the EMBA, and actually that is a good reference now. That is the reason why Senegal is on top of all this kind of innovation. We drive the innovation, and you continue to train people, and training is a key. Training is a huge key.
So I get a point that you made. So the government is now using state policies to, as an intervention to encourage, the move to, sustainability. Making sure that, people would actually, comply to sustainability requirement using state policies. Like the
also it's not very simple, because when private sector elaborate their offer to public procurement, to public sector, they have to make effort to try to develop innovation product.
Yeah, thank you.
Because now we try to have more sustainable product.
Right.
Product we have we take account the life cycle of the product, not only the life cycle of the market.
Excellent. Now that's a good point. So certainly that's why, you know, the point here says that one, you have to look at the potential of the technology as a product in terms of its application, and two, which application should be pursued first. And I'm sure the example that Cornel actually mentioned was a good one. So sometimes you have to do the scenario building and see which of the application should be pursued first and which has to be weighted, all right, for some time. Then what benefits can the proposed product offer to potential customers? And what is the potential market size? And is this sufficient, you know, which we have actually discussed here. Obviously, the lead users recognize requirements early. So you have to recognize the requirements for that particular innovation, expect high level of benefit from the product, develop their own innovations and applications perceived to be pioneering and innovative. So you have to actually look at all these things, you know, considering that. Thank you.
Yes.
Now, of course, the issue of crowdsourcing for new product ideas. We are looking at, you know, the diffusion, the market, you know, and then of course the diffusion of innovation. Sometimes, you know, you want to look at, you know, some of these, ask which product customers would like to produce, you know, ask which product customers prefer. All these ones, you have to look at it from a marketing research perspective, as we have mentioned, in order that you can gauge that it's an appropriate period, you know, for that innovation to actually hit the market. When we talk about the innovation diffusion, obviously from the theoretical perspective, you know, you have these theories to guide you, all right? The Rogers diffusion theory, crossing the chasm, a beacon product. All these are theoretical underpinnings. We have already discussed quite a lot of these. But so practically, you know that something will work, but we need a certain guidance so that we do not put too much money and realize that it won't work. And so that's why the diffusion models are here, which we have discussed some of them. Obviously, we say that innovators 2.5, early adopters 13.5, early majority, etc. So this will serve you as a guide to tame your, you know, your expectations, and then to tame your decisions on cost and revenue expectation, etc. So you always want to make sure that, you know, you're looking at these these theories. The chasm obviously says that the technological enthusiasts and the visionaries, which is the innovators and then the early adopters. But between these two, there could be a huge gap. Don't forget, the technological enthusiasts or the innovators are always looking forward to new things. And because their economic, you know, bases are high, or they are the most advantageous people in the society, the most rich, usually we're talking about in terms of their economic standards, etc., they're very high. A certain expenditure, whether it goes bad or it goes okay, may not necessarily affect them that much, all right? So they will be very much comfortable, you know, going into buying a new innovative, you know, product, all right? So between these two, which is here, the innovators and the early adopters, between them is 2.5 plus 13.5, which is giving you almost 6%, 16%, you know, of the market. Between the two of them, all right, they may not necessarily feel the pinch, so they could buy an innovative product. But between the two of them, from them and then the rest of the market, it can take a lot of time, all right? And so you may have to spend a lot of money in terms of advertising budget, marketing budget, you know, and sometimes tweaks, you know, of the product. Perhaps you have to go back to the design room to make sure that the design will be adaptable to the rest of the market. All right. And so the chasm here is the gap that you would experience when an innovation is in the market. The first two groups of people or segment might be quick to adopt, but it could take you so long for the rest of the market to catch up because of the sharp differences in their characteristics in terms of income levels, the demographic, characteristics, etc. All right, so we have to always be mindful. Now we'll quickly go to the managing innovation within firms. All right, in the firm itself, what are some of the things that we have to take into consideration? So we're going to look at the factors organizations have to manage to achieve success in innovation, the dilemma facing our organization concerning the need for creativity and stability, etc. Okay, right. So again, we have had quite a lot of discussions about how we manage innovations in our own firms. I think when we started, we're lucky to have some examples shared by Shiloh, Cornell, about how they launched their respective products, etc. And so we have some foreground knowledge on practically how these work. But again, when we are going on, we must be aware that the organization has two key issues to think about from managerial perspective, all right? Must you be efficient or must you be creative? All right, there are efficiency gains and there are creative gains. Remember when Cornell was telling us that when they started 4 years ago, they were very scrappy, all right? But over the years, they have perfected the art of managing so that they can reduce cost. Now, any institution that wants to encourage innovation must be scrappy, all right? Because we said that there must be room, or, as Shakna said, there must be tolerance for mistakes. And how do we perceive mistakes? Do we perceive mistakes as opportunity to learn or opportunity for learning? All right, we need to actually understand that. So the efficiency gains is that the efficient day-to-day operations within an organization require stable routines. That is, we know that stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 must be performed in a certain manner. This is usually achieved in a stable and controlled environment. And that's why the managerial theory is there, that things must be managed in a manner that would ensure efficiency, cost controls, revenue optimizations, etc. But as we actually insist on efficiency, no organization grows without innovation, as we said. All right, and so the development of new products and services require creativity and room to try out new ideas. This is usually achieved in a loose and flexible environment. So to develop what we call, dynamic capabilities, firms need to ensure these two. Right? They need to ensure that there is an efficiency, managerial procedures, and there's a creativity, innovative procedures that could actually make them, well suited for growth in the market. All right. So the incremental innovation reinforces the capabilities of established organizations. So some organizations would want to be incremental in their approach. Others want to have a radical innovation, perspective. And as we mentioned earlier, the organization learns that if it has dynamic capabilities, you want to ensure both. And firms that have dynamic capabilities, that is, those who would make sure that the routine work is actually complemented with creative work in order that they could be, they could ensure growth in the market. So the Pearson's uncertainty map here actually tells us about these two things that we've talked about: incremental, or what we call rapid, kind of innovation. And we're saying that these quadrants, as we say, they're high and low in terms of uncertainty about output, and then high and low in terms of uncertainty about process. Now, whenever we are pursuing either radical innovation or incremental innovation, there are these conundrums that we face, all right, which is the uncertainty that we face. We're looking at the output. What are we expecting at the end of that innovation? Or the process. What must we do to ensure the output of that innovation? Now, to not be sure of the output is, what we call the output uncertainty. And then to not be sure about the process is what we call the process uncertainty. All right. So sometimes you know very well the end game, what must be achieved. And I think that it happened to us when we went to APSA in one of our POC periods. Now, we had gone there, we knew exactly the functions of the product, how it has to come up. But we were told when we went to APSA that the engineering, I mean, the technology behind their prescribed technology, i.e., their compliance technologies, does not include MSQL. All right. They say that they've been advised not to use SQL, sorry. And so the technology backing our software, which is SQL, cannot be used. But they rather use MSQL, and they use another software language, I've forgotten, and other ones, which my team hadn't considered. So that really gives us uncertainty in terms of process. In terms of output, we know exactly what the output should look like. But here is the case, we have developed the software in SQL language, and then the prospective customer says, no, it's not part of our compliance technologies. Our compliance technologies are MSQL and other ones that they were mentioning. So it gives us clearly uncertainty about the process. So now we need to go and get another engineer who was very much PHP, who was very much into some of the other programming languages to facilitate, to help us to achieve. Apparently they actually had SQL, but some way, somehow, somebody didn't want us to proceed on the job. So they said they didn't have SQL. And then, of course, we know Flutterwave, some of these, software languages. Although I'm not really into development, but because of the work that we do, I've actually caught up with some of these languages. Apparently they have this Flutterwaves, PHP, which Cornel just mentioned, and then other languages that they. So, but eventually we had to sort of dance with it, and we came to appreciate, because then we have to hire a new engineer to really study the ecosystem, and then come to appreciation that, well, actually we can convert the SQL into MSQL without any difficulty. So eventually we came to that, and then we were able to implement the project. All right. So in this case, you realize that where there's an uncertainty about output, all right, or the uncertainty about output is high, and then the uncertainty about the process is low, we call it application engineering. All right. So the output uncertainty is very high, but the process uncertainty is low. So it means that you're very much in tune with the engineering of the whole innovation. What you're not sure is what is going to come out. And that's where usually we see it from most of the lab, kind of innovation. All right. Most of the lab innovations, sometimes we are very clear about certain processes, but as to the end game or the output that will come up with, we're not clear. And that's why in lab tech, they test a lot of things, and then they look at, the output. Sometimes it gives you a completely different output that you hadn't even thought about. So in pharmaceuticals, you realize that people have invested into certain, medicines. They come up with medicines that they hadn't even thought about in the past. All right. Similar thing with COVID. Of course, COVID, a lot of the labs, including Bill Gates, etc., they knew the processes for, developing certain jabs, all right? But as to whether the output was going to really touch on the COVID virus, and then be able to be efficient against it, nobody had an idea. But eventually, they actually found out, all right? So usually, you want to, in your innovation processes, you want to look at whether you are certain about the output, but the processes you're not, or whether you are uncertain about the output and then certain about the processes. Right? So exploratory research actually borders on both, where the uncertainty about the output is high, the uncertainty about the process is also high. So you are actually exploring using different methodologies to see whether you would actually get the right results. And then, of course, the development in engineering is where the uncertainty about the process, is high, but then uncertainty about the output is low. And then the fourth one is that you have the combined market, opportunities with technical capabilities. So you always want to be in the fourth quadrant, where there is enough capability in terms of the, what do you call the processes, the engineering, and then of course in terms of the output, what is being expected. So in most cases, to reduce the cost and then to reduce the time of, creating an innovation, you want to be in the fourth quadrant, where you have both capabilities to actually achieve, the innovation. Then, of course, innovation also is in two forms, architectural or component innovation, whether it is the entire architecture or the module of it. And if you look at, some of these innovations that have happened, majority of it is modular innovation. Of course, in terms of what do you call digital currency, I think is a complete architectural, isn't it? Because the entire digital money or the entire idea of digital currency does nowhere near the traditional banking. Is there any reflection of the current digital money on the traditional banking? I think the entire system is architecturally changed, isn't it? It does not rest on that one. The fintech, right? So any ideas from fintech guys? Is the fintech more of an architectural or a modular innovation? Those of you who have insight. Is there anywhere closer to the traditional bank? I think that is a complete architectural, just like what eBays and all these market platforms actually did to the high street. I don't think Amazon had anything closer to the high street. It's a complete architectural innovation. The driverless car is a modular, isn't it? Because obviously the entire car unit is there. I think it's only the driving bit, the doing, etc., is what is actually changed. But the entire structure of the cars, the tires, everything else is there. So with a driverless car, you can say it's a modular innovation. But for the high street, in terms of retail, that is the e-commerce thing, I think is a complete, what do you call architecture, because apart from the storage, which of course retail market didn't even do the storage anyway, it was a complete architectural innovation change. Any ideas, please? Any ideas?
Between architectural innovation and radical innovation.
Say it again, Cornell.
I said that I'm between architectural innovation and the radical one.
Okay, give us an idea. The both. Why are you between the two?
Like, why the two? Because like something I'm sure about is the high impact on architectural knowledge, because like we are a lot into technology and we are always improving the technology we are using, the design, the architecture of the system, the apps and all that, the complexity of all that. Yeah. But why I'm between the two is for me there is a high impact on the component knowledge, because it's a very smart team that is behind all that, and like the technology we are using is, the foundation is also on a lot of engineers, developers, you know, so the knowledge is very, very important here. So that's why I was more radical innovation than architectural innovation, but you may bring more light to it.
Yeah, I think I side you on that explanation. Yeah, thank you. Any other, please? Bankerin, I haven't heard from you guys for long. Ahmed, Oseg, Babaka. Any other views? Yeah, obviously.
Yes, for banking sector, we are not radical. So we are just incremental and modular.
Yeah.
We are just following how the business is moving, how need of customer is moving, and so we try to adapt. But sometimes we move beyond the need of the customer. For example, we have a product like Express Cash. So we look at that in the market. The fees for getting a card is so high when we do a benchmark in the market.
Yeah.
And most of the guys in the country have not account, or most of the time have wallet but need to withdraw money from the ATM. So we put in place a product like Express Cash. So you have just to generate a code and go to the ATM without card and withdraw money. But at the same time, we received what we call the innovation of Wave and Orange Money. So what we have done is just to put together, to make a connection between Wave, and our banking system, between our banking system and the Orange Money, to continue supporting the product, which is Express Cash.
Excellent.
That's why we are on incremental and modular.
Absolutely. That makes sense, of course. And you're talking about people's money, isn't it? Welfare. They say money is blood. So you do not want to shake the system so that people could be skeptical. So it makes sense to be incremental and modular. Excellent. Thank you. Chilo, please.
Just want to share some opinions. In my experience, we are more incremental and architectural. So we are a telecommunication operator. So we have some existing infrastructure, and also we are moving on and moving forward. Like we did, for example, 3G, 4G, and now we are talking about 5G. And with 5G, we have some innovative service and offers. And we in this kind of field, so we cannot be so radical. Okay, and we improve some service, and also we are new innovation, based on the architectural innovation.
Okay, excellent. All right, thank you, Shilo. All right, any other views, please? Where you think some of your innovations have been? Radical innovation, architectural, modular, or incremental? Yeah. Any other views, please? Okay. All right. Good. So yeah. Check now.
Just to share the view of the regulator. As you can know, the regulator, the main mission of the regulator, in particular in the public procurement, is to establish the equilibrium between the stakeholders, I would say public sector, private sector, and the citizen society, civil society. In this sector, we are between modular innovation and radical innovation now, because here something very new is to take account the new challenge. As we well know, the objective of the durable development. The new challenge is now climate change. Take account to the SMEs, the development of the young country. Configuration, new new government in the world is stability. And as you can see, the young country try to find their way to take their place. Recently, you see African Union become members in the G20. Now you can say G21.
That's a very good one.
and that affect and influence all policies.
Yeah.
And that is one part of the story. Another part is the challenge of IT, of AI.
Yeah.
The regulation now, we engage very deeper change in order to increase transparency and make sure that the public funds are used in the interests of the population.
Absolutely. So
that is,
Shekhna, that which is very important is that from a regulatory perspective, time is a crucial factor for the institutions to either push for radical innovation or modular innovation.
Absolutely.
Obviously, with the issue of climate change, you probably say that by the time that Kyoto was signed, at the time, perhaps countries might have been on incremental. But because of urgency of time, which now we're looking at sustainability, they might push more towards radical and modular innovation in that sense. Or even radical and architectural innovation, for example, which is very, very important. And again, the point that you make about the influences of other geopolitical players, you know, in the decision-making towards climate change actions could also move towards radical or architectural innovation. Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you. Fantastic point.
Great. Thank you.
Right. Okay, so we see some of the factors that must underpin whether a certain innovation must be pushed radical or architectural or modular or incremental. You know, comparing or looking at factors such as consumer, interest, regulatory framework, environmental factors, and then firm factors. I think that most important. All right. Okay. So again, we look at some of the stimuluses. I mean, some of the stimuli that would actually impact on innovation success. I think we looked at it earlier on, and now we can actually look at it again from the firm perspective internally. For innovation to actually happen, there are some kind of stimulus, or there's some stimuli that has to be looked at. One is leadership stimuli or stimulus, people management stimulus, knowledge management stimuli, and creativity management, which we had alluded to from the beginning. So one, you want to make sure that we have leadership that is very much orientated towards innovation, and that gives one of the stimuli. Obviously, the people management, how are we getting people to really be orientated towards that philosophy? You know, do we allow them freedom, or are we strict in terms of the people management? You know, are we giving them access to knowledge hubs? Are we allowing them to make mistakes? Are we allowing them to really go beyond the company internally and be externally, you know, adapting new thinking? We have to actually ensure that would actually give that stimulus. Knowledge management, again, are we creating an environment where people could actually get in more ideas? Do we do training, internships? Do we do exchanges? Do we encourage people to travel by facilitating some of this so that they can get new ideas? All right. And then creativity. Are we creating, you know, or are we forming creative cycles, like, you know, or cross-disciplinary, cross-departmental engagement, you know, so that people can fraternize with their own expertise from whether within the firm or within the sector, in order that they could be creative. We need to ensure that. So apart from the innovation stimulus, there's also innovation capacity. You know, the stimulus is about the inspiration that we're getting, but the capacity is about physical structures available to make sure that we could actually do the art of innovation. One, technological management. You know, what are the investment? What are the infrastructure? R&D management. Are we having systems in place, regulations in place, tools in place, what do you call expertise in place, in order that we would have the capacity to be innovative? And then, of course, innovation performance. That leads to innovation performance. What is our product innovation cycle is? Our product innovation cycle very regular or too slow? Some companies might be there for 15 years, 20 years, they haven't innovated. All right. What about process innovation? What is the cycle? People, and I was actually accusing the universities, my own university, processes had been there for years. There hadn't been any innovation, especially for examination, for example. So yes, Cornell 54-1, but with real power. So Cornell says, I don't like the G21 because they can't just reduce the whole Africa into just one country. I agree with you. We a lot. Okay, United States of Africa. Great conversation going on. Okay, so if you look at the way the universities work, you know, process innovation, very minimal. A lot of things in the universities had been going on for years, even as common as fees payment. In my university, people at some point couldn't even pay with mobile money. We have to make a lot of noise before the university could adapt, you know, to mobile money payment for fees, etc. So yeah, we need to really look at this chain and see how we could facilitate innovation management in firm. Of course, each of these factors that we've talked about could be seen in here. Firm-related factors, organizational heritage, experience, R&D, etc. I think we've mentioned most of these in the past, so we don't have to belabor the point. And the same way, if you look at the framework, the input for innovation management, we're talking about people input, physical and financial resource input, tools, knowledge management, we're talking about idea generation, knowledge repository, information flows, all right? In some firms, information flows is missing. When I used to work with T-Mobile, there was a system called Excalibur and mailing. Mailing is where we can put information regarding Excalibur and its performance and its interface with customers onto there. And then the back office will take that information into design. In some firms, they don't even have internet where people can put in the ideas in order that, you know, back office can take over and then use it as insight for innovation thinking. But if you want to ensure innovative firms, innovative environment, you want to create systems like this so that people can put the ideas on, the observation in terms of interaction with customers, supply chain, etc., so that, you know, the teams can pick up and be able to use it. Innovation strategy, strategic orientation, strategic leadership, in terms of culture, in terms of portfolio management, all these things must be, you know, taken into consideration in firm if we want to encourage innovation. I think this linkage, we had previously discussed it in other forms, but again, it talks about the technological linkages amongst different types of firms. There are some firms that are science-based. So we're looking at the labs, all right? And if you look at the health sector, when COVID came, there were lab, firms or science-based firms, which is the STIs, purely looking at the solutions for COVID, the medicines for COVID, and they were purely looking at research, all right, which they would actually test, etc. It then moves into the supply dominant firms, where the supply dominant firms are like the pharmaceuticals, all right? So right from the science labs, and they found something, they're moving into they're moving into what do you call the manufacturers, all right? The manufacturers of the drugs. So maybe you would say that from science-based firms to the scale-intensive firms, which is those manufacturers. Of course, these two are interacting with the supply dominant, firms like the pharmaceutical agencies, or they interact with the specialist equipment suppliers. That is those who might, develop some of the equipment, needed in the value chain or the supply chain, for example. So you always want to identify your ecosystem partners and see where your innovation actually goes, and make sure that the processes that you're using is consistent with these, chain of partners. Now, I remember in our own case, we realized that deploying our technology on apps, or on phones or on tablet, may not be a smart idea, because it wouldn't actually grasp, or it wouldn't actually outline the very thing that we wanted to position. One of our product positioning was that if you allow customer feedback to be done after the customer had left the service scape, you would not have the authentic feedback. Because say that I think EcoBank uses the QR coding, isn't it? From what I know in Ghana, is it EcoBank is Osek, are you the EcoBank one? Who is EcoBank?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So in Ghana, EcoBank feedback is by QR code. And so when you interact with the the agent or the teller, you scan the QR code and then you can answer it. Now, what I found is that most people will scan the QR code, and I don't know whether that's what you have found as well. They will go and sit in their car, they will leave the banking space, perhaps in the evening or when they are sitting somewhere and they are free, then they respond, all right, to their feedback. Now, my argument was that it was not going to give us authentic feedback because the customer had left the service scape. There had been a lot of interventions. Maybe they've gone to do something, etc. By the time they're giving the feedback, their reflection on the service quality had been muddied by the other interventions, all right? So they may not be accurate in their feedback they are given. Because of that, our model was to put in the banking hall a certain digital terminal, just like the digital terminal that you have in the QR, the QMS, taking a ticket. So that digital terminal had a screen on it. Immediately from the service scape, that is from the teller, and you are going out, by the door, you have the terminal there that you need to give your feedback. We believe that that would give a fresh memory because the person had, in few seconds, interacted with the banking staff. And so giving that feedback was very fresh. Again, in the EcoBank case, because you've scanned it and you've left, sometimes you probably might forget the agent that served you. But in this case, because the system is just some few seconds, you will definitely know who you served, because who served you, because their faces are there. And because of that, we needed to find a supplier of that digital terminal. And that happened to be a Chinese firm because we couldn't have any of these, in Ghana. So right from our designs phases, we needed to get somebody, a supplier that can give us those terminals for us to activate our product. Now, we are not into hardware, we are into software, but we needed a complementary product like the digital terminal in order that our software can be realized. Otherwise, people cannot tell what exactly we mean. And so immediately we started sourcing that particular terminal, people started understanding our philosophy. And I keep saying, we do not want to use mobile phone because when people scan it, they will not give authentic feedback. And really, a lot of people now have started seeing the philosophy behind our approach, our model, different from the existing models, right? So you need to identify your ecosystem players and how their value can actually supplant or can actually enhance your value. If that understanding is not there, your target market might not understand your value because your value might be dependent on other products that you are not the one producing. But without that product, your value might not be seen by the customers. So you always have to look out for your ecosystem players and how their values interconnect with your value to enhance or to give the customer an enhanced proposition. Otherwise, you would not be able to be successful in sort of communicating better your product proposition and your product value and the consumer value in that sense. All right. Any questions or contribution, please? All right. So again, we have organic versus mechanistic organizational structures. Of course, most of it we have discussed. So issues of communication, operating styles, authority for decisions, all these things must be considered. So you have organic and mechanistic. Those that are very much organic is what we recommend. So channels of communication must be open with free information flow throughout the organizations. Mechanistic, highly structured, restricted information flow. So in a very creative environment, you want to look at organic. In a very managerial environment, you want to look at mechanistic. And which example of Cornell gave very fantastic one, because when they started, as he mentioned in the Wave case, it was very much organic. Everything was in a sort of kind of loose structure. But as they proceeded on and then launched the product, etc., you have to start moving towards a mechanistic way. Otherwise, you will not be able to be successful. But you must know how to sort of marry the two, so that you have a dynamic capability. Yes. Okay, so someone is actually asking, when there's a conflict of management between management and I think the top management and the workforce in terms of innovation, how do you confront the two? So when we're confronted by a lack of commitment from the top management in the face of the issues and challenges and perspectives of a notion of innovation, what's according to your experience, the best strategy to convince managers to accept the approach? Absolutely. Thank you so much. That's a very good question. So management understand one thing.
Hello, sir. This question is according to me.
Yeah.
So I've seen that in my companies, when you discuss with the top management, you have lack of commitment. So, like I said in the SMS, what is the best strategy to convince manager to accept this approach?
Absolutely. Good question, Ahmed. Now, I want colleagues to share ideas, and I will come back with mine. Anyone faced that issue where top management is not committed to innovation? How do you get them convinced? Basically, who has an experience at their end and can share with us? Who want to get us let me see. So Babaka, sorry. Oh, good. I haven't heard from you for a long time. Benkere, who wants to try? Who want to add something to what Ahmed has said? Yeah, anyone? Chilo, you want to give us some practical example? Kamara, I haven't heard from you. Anyone, please? Usek, do you want to share your experience with us? Anyone? Okay. So I'll give you one example. And I go back to my university. All right. Now, I might not say that they were not committed. In my university's case, it's just a matter of they are not actually exposed to, innovation. They're not exposed to innovation because most of the, top managers in my university are not business people. And typical of universities, most of the managers are social sciences, sometimes pure science people, like biochemists, like what do you call linguistics. Our current VC, for example, all right, is from a linguistics background. All right. So majority of the university management might not be exposed to the idea of competition and the idea of the concept of competition and the concept of innovation, etc. So one, because their disciplinary is not bothered on the workings of the market and the behaviors of the market, they may be reluctant in taking up some things of innovation thinking. All right. And it's not that they are not what do you call but it's a matter of attitude and behavior because of their discipline. All right. So what I do is that silent culture, exactly. Yeah, people sort of work within their own phase. So what I did was that whenever we go for meetings, all right, whenever we go for meetings, convocations, etc., and I'm explaining the need for the university to change its ways, I use examples of the emerging universities and what they're doing. So I'll make references to new schools and how they're doing this. And then sometimes I cite an example of the numbers, all right, that are actually coming in, that are dwindling from our end. And they are actually, doing it. Now, when I start painting those pictures, they tend to come to understand the perspective. Sorry. So in most cases, you need to draw examples around that because obviously they also live in the ecosystem, they live in the market, so they should be able to see or observe what is happening. All right. So I draw their mind onto some of these emerging universities and what they're doing. I give examples in terms of showing the figures, etc. And by so doing, they tend to think about it. But sometimes also they are hampered by cost, all right, money. Sometimes they will tell the university hasn't got money to do that. So I would have to find certain very, I don't know how to put it, value for money, very cheaper ways of doing these things so that, they would start thinking about it in that sense. So you would have to, and sometimes also you need to have what we call agents, like allies, people who can understand your point to form some kind of alliances and then use your strength to persuade management. I don't know whether what I've said to you works or would work in your area. So OSEC says the best way to convince them is to put figure on what they stand to gain from the innovation. Excellent. But also on the structure's ability to support this change. Clearly. Because management want to see numbers, as OSEC said. Management want to see, they are interested in the numbers in terms of revenue, in terms of cost. And when you show them the numbers, especially in terms of cost, how much is costing us not to innovate, they will just start panicking, all right? Because others are actually taking your student and telling them, if you don't do this, people are taking your student, etc. They get panicky, all right? And then also when you show them the revenues of, you know, how innovation can actually push up the revenue, when you show the numbers, they tend to align with you. Schechner says, start by sensibly sensitizing them to the benefits of innovation and the loss of the innovation. Absolutely. I agree with you. Yeah, Ahmed, does that work for you?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Especially looking for allies so that they can agree with you and then you can be hammering on that. All right. Anyway, great point. So do we finish once and for all, or do we take a break for lunch and then come back? Okay, I think it's 12 at your end, right? Is one here. I think it's left to some few slides. Should we finish or should we take a break and come back? Thanks a lot. Okay. Okay, great. Thank you, Ahmed. Guys, I need your views. We are in democracy. So do we to finish? Okay. So we should finish. Okay.
Let us finish, I think.
Okay, okay. Just some few slides remaining. We can finish and then. Okay, good. All right, thank you guys. All right, so key individuals and their roles, of course, you know, technical innovators, gatekeepers, production champion or product champion, project leader. I think this one is self-explanatory. So when you get them, you can actually appreciate. Innovation management typologies, as we said earlier, you have a knowledge and technology management, you have market intelligence, you have cooperation and networking, human resource management, you know, the methodologies and tools, knowledge audit, you have to do a knowledge audit, mapping, technology roadmaps, industry foresight. We have discussed all these throughout our discussions that we were actually having. The idea that you need to do research, market sensing, you need to gather intelligence, you know, and then, you know, use that too. So I don't think we have to bother with this. Okay, so I suppose this one is the last session. I want to look at strategic alliances and networks. Of course, one, we've talked about the institutional, I mean, we've talked about the country, the role that the country plays, the state plays in innovation. We've talked about the market, you know, diffusion of innovation, etc., market acceptance and diffusion. We've talked about the firm, you know, management processes. And then, of course, we're looking at the strategic alliances and networks. Obviously, every innovation cannot work without the existing networks or partners. You're talking about supply networks, you're talking about, you know, regulatory networks, etc., even competition network. Because, you know, one thing I realized in marketing is that any industry that are no competition, it's very difficult for you to break into. The reason being that people don't know that that product exists. All right, people don't know that there's something like that. So the theory of social norms, I mean, there's a theory called planned behavior. All right, the theory of planned behavior says that social norms, i.e., people want to know whether what they're doing is acceptable. And so when people don't see their behavior as acceptable by society, it is very difficult for them to adopt that particular behavior. All right. And how do people get to know that a certain behavior is acceptable? Is because they are participating in it. So if you are coming out with a certain innovation, and that innovation hadn't been in existence, or that particular product or in a technology hadn't been in existence for people to know that there is something that works or there's something that is acceptable by society, it is very, very difficult for you to actually single out coming, right? And so you might sometimes have to be working with competitors, right? Sometimes if you succeed in killing your competitors in the market, you will die yourself, all right? because once people do not see alternative products, they feel lonely and they feel that this is wrong. And so if you look at industries like beverages, what do you call alcoholic beverages, if you look at industries like even smoking a cigarette, there are alliances. I mean, there are sector societies that actually protect them, right? If the alcoholic beverage industry was not strong enough as a unit and be advocating, the medical society would have killed it, because they would prescribe to government that alcoholic drinks actually kill human beings. It is making your budget too expensive because you have to take care of them medicinal wise. And if the players in the alcohol industry are not united to protect their sector, government can issue policies to kill them. So sometimes for innovation to work, you need competitors to exist in order that you have strength in that unitary block. Otherwise, you won't succeed. And so we must be aware of the networks, the institutional networks that are available to really make our innovation work. And this is an example of how in the automobile, almost all of them actually relate to each other because they source from each other, all right? So you see that Toyota is linked to Peugeot, has relationship with, Peugeot. Renault has relationship with Daimler, has relationship with Nissan, has relationship with Peugeot. Suzuki has relationship with Nissan, has relationship with VW, in that order. If you look at them, okay, so Babakar says, amazing network. It's a big supply chain than not an industry. Yeah, exactly. So if you look at even the Apple and Samsung, two fierce rivals, yet they actually, work in semiconductors, because apparently Samsung is responsible for Apple's, semiconductors. So you want to be sure that for your innovative product to work, what are the existing partners that you must work with? Although they could be your competitor, their existence or their lack of existence would mean your collapse. So your aggressive competition may even end up killing you yourself. So when it comes to innovation, we must attune our mind to a certain network, orientation, a certain co-optation instead of competition, all right? So that our very innovation, can work. And there are examples of companies that are actually, working together in that sense, okay? Shekna, come in, please.
I would say just that is where African country fails.
Mm-hmm.
They don't think network really. They try to make competition everywhere, and
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't work.
You're right.
Developed countries, they operate in certain fields. Even they continue to have competition in some fields. They cooperate in some strategical field.
Absolutely.
And help the industry and help science move forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. So yes, sometimes you cooperate in some areas, and sometimes you compete in some areas. And obviously, in terms of selection of your partners, you want to look at their values, you want to look at their strategy, you want to look at their, what you call core competences to select as suitable partners. Negotiations of each other's needs, you have to discuss. You have to look at the continual management, to ensure the parties benefit. What are the technical knowledge? What are the commercial knowledge? Some may have commercial knowledge, some may have a technical knowledge, and then of course management towards collaboration, and then it goes through the cycle. So as Shekna said, go on.
To finish, I want just to say one of a big boss in I forget it, in a great company in USA said the following thing. I just put light in some Africa to help young people, young students learn and develop their knowledge in they create new knowledge and participate to the innovation and help perhaps my company or help the other countries to get more insight and could benefit to my company in return. Just a other and expect in the future in return on innovation and new knowledge. You see this kind of mind of mindset that is very different to I have to get immediately a return. They invest and they think maybe that's not certain, but maybe I will get return.
Excellent.
I hear that for a big boss in the leading company in USA.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that insight. Great, guys. So we need to think, network oriented. We need to think, collaboration sometimes, not all competition, but we need to select our partners, appropriately using the guide that we can see there. All right, guys, I think that the rest of it, we don't necessarily have to, bother. I think it's, new. Okay, yeah, there's a session on a new product development, which, also goes on to talk about in terms of innovation. Obviously, once you are innovating, you have to go through the product development stages. Typical examples that you can see, you need to have your business model. And you can see a typical business model by eBay. When you are doing the business development, you have to actually think about your revenue models, your cost models, your model on supply, all right, or distribution, and you want to look at your sourcing as well. How do you source? In terms of eBay, you look at the seller pays eBay for listing items. Obviously, list the items on eBay. The next one is the income streams to eBay. How does eBay actually make their money? Apart from the listing, apart from getting it, of course, there are also advertising revenues. So when you developing, your innovation, know that it's also commercial interest, not that you just want to be innovative, but because of commercial success. So you have to build your entire business model, focusing on your cost, your revenue, thinking about your distribution models, obviously your supply, etc., in order to be, very comprehensive. So you answer these questions: who is the target customer? What customer problems do they have? What value does it deliver, etc.? Guys, I think we can close, so that you can have some time for yourself on the Sunday. It's been very busy, but I'm sure we can actually close. So the assignment that I've given, please look at the assignment, and I think the submission is 24th. But if you think that you need more time, let me know. Let Sheila know, and she'll pass it on to me. I hope you have enjoyed this. Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to the business intelligence as well. I've enjoyed your contribution. It's been very, very practical. And thank you so much for the insight that you've shared. I've really, really benefited from it. And I look forward to having the same engaging conversation on the business intelligence. Thank you. Any other things from you guys, or we'll call it a day and then enjoy your Sunday. All right. Very interesting class. Okay, thank you so much, Anta. All right. So great. Sheila will share, please, the link. Sheila, are you here? Sheila? The recording, so if you share with them so that they can follow it. All right, guys, thank you. Enjoy your time. Bye, and see you next week.
Yes, sir, I'm here. I was trying.
Okay. All right, Sheila. So you get a link, the tape, the recording, so that they can use the message. All right. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye, sir.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.